In the latest build of Total Quilter, we added a brand new feature for faux piecing. And before we get started showing what and how to do that in the software, I wanted to bring up a couple examples and kind of explain the technique to you. This is not a brand new technique. We've actually been using it in a couple different projects for the My Decorative Quilter, but it was a process that you had to create each section and the stitches, and it was a little bit more complicated than the brand new feature that kind of does things for you automatically. But the concept behind faux piecing is you take one piece of fabric, like you can see in this example with the green background. It's one piece of green fabric, and what you're doing is you're using stitches to make it look like that piece of fabric has been pieced together to make a block. So it's replicating the look of a pieced together block, but it's doing it with stitches as opposed to having to sew a bunch of pieces together. So this is kind of the concept behind it. As you can see, a couple different examples here, and that's what faux piecing is all about. It's taking one piece of fabric and decorating it with stitches to make it look like it's been pieced together. So with the software open, I'm going to go and I'm going to actually work from the Quilt blocks. So we're going to go and find an Quilt block, and we're going to decorate it as the example. So I'm going to come into classic blocks, and I'm going to choose Chevron 02 and bring that up. This is a two color block here. So knowing that faux piecing takes one piece of fabric and then it uses stitches to decorate the other to make it look like it's been pieced, we're really going to focus this lighter color green as being the main fabric color, just a solid piece of fabric, and then we're going to have stitches over the top. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make this put stitches in the areas of this darker green. So I'm going to grab my Quilt object selection tool, and I'm going to select the first one, then I'm going to hold down Control and select the other two darker green areas. And what I'm going to do at this time is go down to the advanced stippling, and I'm going to add some stippling to these pieces. Let's go ahead and use this one right here, and you can see that it's applied those stitches to these pieces. I'm going to select them again, and I'm going to make this pattern a little tighter. The tighter the pattern, or the smaller the repeated pattern is, the more it's going to cover the fabric, the less fabric will show through, so it'll make it look more like it is another piece of fabric on top. So let's go ahead and make this about 10 and hit apply. So now you can see that that pattern's a little tighter. The next thing that I want to do is I want to add color to these stitches. So I want these to be a dark green color, so I'm going to select these three again, and I'm going to come down here and click on this dark green color in my palette, and I want to say that I want the fill paths to be this color. So now that I have that, I'm going to actually utilize the Motif binding stitches, and you don't have to. You can actually convert it right to artwork. You don't have to have these stitches, but I like to add them on the edge because I think it adds some character. So I'm going to come up here and select my Quilt binding stitches, and now I'm going to go and I'm going to find a stitch that I want to apply along the edge here. Let's go ahead and choose this one right here and hit apply. So you can see that it applies that around the edge, and I like the fact that this motif actually has a different two different sides to it basically. And so on this side I'm getting on top of the green, the lighter green area, I'll get one look. On this side I'll get a different look from that motif, and it kind of does that for the other objects as well. So just because I'm going to come in here now and I'm going to select these objects again, and I want to convert it to the same color, because like I said, it's going to be one piece of fabric, and this is just for view. It doesn't change anything in the design, and when you go to sew it out, it's just to see what it's going to look like. So I'm coming down this lighter green area and I'm going to choose fabric color, and by doing that you can see that now it's starting to look like one piece of fabric with stitches on top, and this is going to be what the block is going to look like. And if you really want to see a good contrast, I could come in here and I could change the color of the fabric to like maybe a white or a light gray, and you're going to see a little bit more contrast here. Let's do like a really light silver color, and let's do this for fabric color, and now you're going to see a little bit better of contrast here. Let me put it on 3D view, and that'll give you a really good idea of what it's going to look like when you stitch it out. And so once you have the block set up the way that you want it, you just need to make sure it's selected, and there's this new button right here called Export Faux Piecing, and it's very similar in look to the Appliquilt block export tool. It just has a red floppy disk on top of the original icon. We're going to select it, and it's going to bring up a dialog box. So I'm going to name this just Faux Piecing Demo, and I'm going to keep it in the same location. I do want to add a seam allowance, and the default is 1/4 of an inch, and I like that as the default. And this is helpful for when you go and you actually want to add sashing to a block, or you want to connect one block to another. And I'm going to choose the PES format because I have a brother machine, and I do want to save a WAF version. This is on by default. This will just save the working file here, so that if I wanted to make changes to it, I could bring that up and make changes to it and then export it again. I do want to explain this as digitized button right here. It's not on by default, but let's say that you wanted it to stitch out in a certain order and you created the block. It will actually, if you click this button, it will stitch it out in the order that you created it if you choose this option. But with it turned off, the software is actually going to apply its smarts to the design. It's going to resequence all of the different stitch objects, and it's going to make them start and end closest to the other. And the purpose of this is to reduce the number of trims in the design. So if you're doing something like a quilt as you go and you want to actually do the top fabric, batting, and back fabric all at the same time, you'll want to utilize this feature, because you don't want to see trims on the back of the block when you get done if you're doing it all at one time. And so this is a very nice feature. By default, it's going to optimize it. If you want it to stitch in a specific order, you can click that box. I want to go ahead now at this time and click on the print preview. And what the print preview is, it's going to bring up a box, and it's going to show you what the block's going to look like here. And you can have the option, you have the option down here in the settings to change the printer if you'd like. You just click on it and you can select the printer you want to use. And then you have down at the bottom, you have pages from 1 to 2. It'll tell you how many pages you have. If you only wanted to print page 1, you would just say pages from 1 to 1 and hit print. And I want to go ahead and show you what the second page is. And what it is going to be your color sequence. So it's going to have your little placement stitch, and then it's going to have your decorative fills that are right here, and then it's going to do the motifs, and then it's going to do a line right across along the edge here inside of the seam allowance, so that you know exactly where to stitch the sashing to or another block to. It just helps as a guide. It's really nice feature to have. And we're going to go ahead and hit close here, and when I choose export, it's going to open up all the files that it saves into Explorer here, into the location that they're saved to, it's going to pop up here. And what it's done is it's given me the WAF file, and it's given me the stitch file to go and stitch this on the machine. And it actually saves an image of the block as well. So when you go to stitch out a faux quilting block, there's a couple different ways that you can do it. The way that I like to do it is just to utilize batting, either hoop batting or hoop a piece of no-show nylon mesh and do the placement stitch and then lay batting down that's larger than the block size. Or you can just hoop a piece of batting and stitch a placement line on it, and then lay your top fabric down and stitch on top of it. It's a really simple technique, really a lot of fun. It doesn't take hardly any time to create a block that looks unique and is nothing but one piece of fabric with stitches that make it look like it's pieced together. So hope that you enjoy this brand new feature, and I can't wait to see what you guys create.